a lot about post-harvesting and what is needed and who to involve. Very interesting, I think, the bridge now with Vivian Maduekeh, Managing Director at Food Health Systems Advisory. You advise governments, development partners, and I think very crucial also for this discussion, private sector. Can you further elaborate on the role of private sector through in food systems in general and some of the issues that we heard here this afternoon?
Sure, I'm happy to. Hi, everyone. Hello? Yes. Let me liven the room a little bit. So, like you mentioned, we advise governments, development partners, but also private sector. And I'll start by saying everything everyone has said has been amazing, but I'm going to pick it from a practical sense. Africa is made up of mostly young people, and I have young children. And these traditional indigenous foods, many young people don't like eating them. They just don't. Because their palates have been trained by ultra processed foods that have been marketed. So more and more, the preference has shifted away from what many of us, used to eat. And the reason why I'm prefacing the conversation with this is, as much as we're trying to grow these foods, we need to create demand. For private sector to make investments, they need to see that demand. And also for farmers to grow, they're not going to grow it based on nostalgia. They're going to grow it based on a clear market. And that is where private sector comes in. A lot of the work we do with our private sector clients, so food companies, but also SMEs, is to use the tactics used to push ultra processed foods, to push these indigenous foods. That's the first one. So the role of private sector is to create demand, to create aspiration, to make young people to want to eat these foods. The second part of what the role of private sector is to use food technology and culinary science, again, to make these foods palatable, nutritious, delicious, and people wanting to buy them. And for us at Food Health Systems Advisory, we have a research and development lab where we work with SMEs to develop products. For example, if you have millet, for example, developing, fura de nunu that is already a traditional food, but now making it packaged, safe, wonderful, delicious for young people to want to buy them. So that's the second part. The third part, the role of private sector, is equipment and technology. Now, Dr. Namakulu made a mention of the fact that a lot of the financing and focus has been on the usual crops, the maize, the wheat. For me as a food technologist, even finding equipment to clean millet is really difficult. Or finding equipment to crush bambara nut. Anybody who knows bambara nut knows that it's quite a hard legume to crack. So even that technology, that is a role of private sector. What kind of technology is needed to get these products to the market? What kind of advertising is needed to compete with the sugary sweetened beverages that even my children want to eat instead of beans? These are real things that we need to talk about. How do we stimulate demand using private sector tactics? I would say the third piece, the role of private sector, is financing. Now, some of the work we are doing with female food processors in Nigeria is we're helping them dry tomatoes and okra. And one of the things we found is private sector, they need financing to de-risk. And it's private sector that would give them that money. But beyond that, that is also where the role of public-private partnership and development partners, where they can help de-risk investment, private sector investment into these new crops. One typical example is hardly would you find a private sector person wanting to go into millet or bambara with their own resources. And even if they do, most times they don't have sufficient resources. So the role of private sector would be investment so that they can, other private sector people can get the right equipment, advertise, source, and make sure that these products are getting into the hands of the young population that would need them.